Very good afternoon to you. This is Talk Sport with Martin Keown, Bob Mills, David Connolly with us as well, and me, Natalie Sawyer. And on Tuesday, we will find out who is in and who is out of Gareth Southgate's England squad ahead of the Euros. So, inevitably, we have to turn our attentions to that and have a little discussion about who we think will make it into what is now a 26-man squad, normally 23, but UEFA have extended that to 26 players to sort of allow for what has been a hectic schedule, although only 23 will be available on a match day. So, Martin, do you want to start by giving us your thoughts?
I'm assuming Gareth Southgate had longer than me to choose this. It was thrown at me this morning.
Well, we have known about the Euros for a while, Martin.
Yes, we have, of course, but we didn't know there was 26 players until recently. But
Go on.
This is what I feel that Gareth Southgate will pick. Okay. This is not necessarily the squad that I might pick if given the chance. But so I think the goalkeepers almost pick themselves, Henderson, Pope and Pickford. I don't think there's any complaints there. I'm going to have two left-backs, Shaw and Chilwell. I think 4 central defenders is enough because there's still flexibility. So Maguire, Mings, Dyer and Stones. And then I think is the biggest issue when you're coming to the right back.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have 3 right backs.
Okay.
I am. I think Gareth is looking at the recent squads. So Kyle Walker, Reece James and Kieran Trippier.
Okay.
With
so
no
Trent.
So that's maybe the biggest question mark. We can come back to that. And then the midfield, I think we're probably going to have 7 midfield players. Declan Rice and Phillips will be the 2 that probably sit. Bellingham has to be in the squad for his quality developing. Foden, Mount, Grealish and Lingard. And then we're looking at the front players. 7 forwards I've gone for. Kane, Watkins, Sancho, Sterling, Rashford, Saka,
Okay.
and Calvert-Lewin.
Right.
So there's a few things to debate there, but I think it's interesting. Some of the other squads, I'm just looking at the French squad, they've gone with 8 strikers. The German side have gone with 6 strikers. We're going with 7 there. And there's lots to choose from if you want to change from one system to the other. Gives that flexibility. Obviously, Kyle Walker can play in a 3, can play in a back 5. We played in the semi-finals of the recent World Cup with a back 5, and I thought maybe we'd evolved to a different system. But there's some talk that we may go back to it. But this squad gives you that adaptability to pick both teams.
I think you touched on France here. Whoever's left out here, Trent, I think, is the big one. You look at the France squad, I think Martial's not in it. Laporte, those 2 players. So it comes to this time, although it's 26 players, there's still going to be some that are not in the squad. I would have Trent in it. I think all day long I'd have Trent in an England
What
squad.
about Henderson? Because he's injured, hasn't played since February. Would you take him in your squad because of his experience that he has? Because he's not in the squad at the moment, but he's not playing.
No, I know, but I guess Gareth has said that before about players not playing. So it depends. It depends if he's going to select players that have done well from in the past or select players that are fit and on form. I think if Jordan is fit enough, he will go. I think he will go. But I don't think they need 2 holding midfield players, and I don't think they should play with 2 holding midfield players. But in terms of cover or options.
And then you've got the likes of Connor Cody. So if you're going to play a 3...
So maybe we should discuss the Trent Alexander-Arnold situation. You think he should go?
Yes.
Martin, you think Gareth might not pick based on previous
I don't think you'll take him,
squads.
but I think he's an amazing talent. And surely you can find room for him. But then if you're being... if you put another right back in, you've got 3 in the squad already, potentially. I mean, are you going to take Reece James out? Because Reece James can play in the back 3.
Absolutely. But then you could say, right, Trippier, he's probably going to win the league in Spain, right? Doesn't get much better than that. But nonetheless, I guess, would he come under the same scrutiny as Trent? Or is Trent come under more scrutiny? Because obviously he's here within eye view. And is that fair as well? And he's had a resurgence. He's had a resurgence in form. Obviously, Liverpool and upturn in form as well. So he's ending the season on a high. So
do you pick 4 right backs then? No. And then you can't, because then you're going to affect your front line.
No, but all of those that you've selected there could play, and they have played in a back 3 or as wing backs or as full backs, right? All of them.
We mentioned Moneyball, and we mentioned that system. If you're picking the team with that thing, you think you've got to take Trent, because 3 or 4 times in the course of this tournament, it will depend on the ball, the delivery of the ball from the fullback, and he's the best deliverer of a football without any shadow of a doubt.
Well, only if he's on the pitch. and he
exactly.
doesn't want to pick him.
But he will. At some point, he will have to.
Why then didn't I beg the question? Because I did the under-21s. Why then was he not in the under-21 squad? Because I think they would have progressed with him in the team, and I don't think there's any shame in dropping down. This whole thing of you've moved on. Spain didn't do that. Spain did not. They put Juan Mata. They put Juan Mata dropping down.
I think it would demoralise him.
No, I think by combat, I think it would be the exact opposite.
Yeah, not.
I think it would galvanise him.
No, I think it's hurtful to put him in the 21s.
No, it's not. What if he'd have gone and won that? What if he'd have won that? What if he'd have won that?
I wouldn't do it.
He would have been at the forefront even more of his mind, but winning something. So now, if he doesn't select him in the squad, that told me months ago.
His manager will be crying out for a rest for him. He's been playing in Champions Leagues. They're playing 15, 16 games a season, Dave, more than the other teams. He's just a young boy.
He should have told him early on, and I think if he would have read the signals that he's not. If he's not in this squad, if I was Trent, I'd be fuming, thinking I could have dropped down and won that Euro 21s. That's what I'd be thinking if I was him. I think.
So Trent Alexander-Arnold, we know, is one of the, if not the biggest contentious decision of whether or not he will be picked by Gareth Southgate. If you're looking at the centre-back options, you've got Harry Maguire, Tyrone Mings, Eric Dyer, John Stones. You mentioned Connor Cody. He's someone I talked about beforehand, saying just because for his personality as well as anything. I mean, obviously we know how much of a leader he's been for Wolves, but I think there's something extra that he adds just by being amongst a squad. There's something about Connor Cody that's very infectious. But Eric Dyer has been a player that's come in for a lot of criticism this season in the Spurs lineup. Is he someone that should be guaranteed a place in this squad? David,
no guarantees. I don't think there's any guarantees because of the way that he's performed, but he plays in midfield. He plays in that defensive line. It depends on how the manager feels about these individuals, doesn't it? And you could look at Mings and say, well, okay, he's started to play really well, hasn't he? And he's starting to look like he's the part. But a lot of people are not really satisfied at his international level. Mm-hmm. So do you take him out of the squad? If you haven't got the conviction to play him, do you need him in the squad? Do you play? Do you take him out and bring Alexander-Arnold in? But for me, I think you can't go in. You've got to go in with a balanced squad, and I think you need 4 central defenders, whatever system you're going to play, with the chance for 2 of them, Dave, to play in different roles. But they're so flexible, some of these players. I mean, Bukayo Saka as well is another player that can play left back. He can play right wing. He's an amazing talent. So those versatility players, they do get an advantage. But we need to look at the likes of Foden as well and Mount, what relationships we're going to be building. What is our midfield going to look like? Is it going to be Declan Rice and Phillips in that midfield? The 11, 1 to 11 probably is where we should be talking about. The squad, of course, that's got to be picked. But he has got a nice problem, actually, Gareth Southgate, in trying to pick 26 players into this group.
He can't. I don't think he's got 3 centre-halves just from the centre-halves.
Mm-hmm.
I think if he's going to play a back 3, I think one of those will be a traditional who has been a fullback. I think
it works better with that system anyway.
Well, exactly. But so I think the centre halves might be a moot point, although they're nowhere near the same depth as the fullback areas. But that's where I think a Shaw could play, obviously in a back 3, or he could even play in time. I think Luke Shaw like a left centre back easily. A lot of these fullbacks in here could play centre half.
Shaw's played there, hasn't he, for Manchester United this season, and we haven't got too many left-footed players.
Exactly.
But I mean, it's interesting, the people out there. I mean, what people think. Be interested to hear their views on how people looking at Greenwood. Does he come into the squad? There's 1 or 2 here that I'm saying Ollie Watkins has been magnificent for Villa. Has he got that pedigree needed for international
he scored,
football?
didn't he?
He's only played 1 game, 1 goal.
Yeah.
It's a late run from him.
Mm-hmm.
He's got pace. He's got pace that the others don't really possess in that front line. He can play the way that Gareth wants. He's a bit of an outlier, I guess, isn't he?
It's interesting with regards to midfield, though, because when you look at the midfield that you think, Martin, Gareth Southgate will pick from, they're all very young. There's not much experience in there. And I know you've alluded to Jordan Henderson. If he's fit, he'd be in there, obviously. But we also know that the Gareth Southgate has spoken about, well, I'll only pick players on form. So
Madison. No Madison in that squad.
But then you have all these creative
I don't think he's
players.
mobile enough.
How do you fit all these creative players? Can you fit all these creative players into a starting 11?
Well, it's balance, isn't it?
Yeah.
But you've got to have the players at your disposal that you think can win the competition, and you've got to have that talent. Like Grealish is coming late. Mount, we know. Why can't we play Foden and Mount in the same team?
Grealish has missed 12 games. That's a lot, isn't it? That's a lot of games. There's no Ward-Prowse in there. What about Ward-Prowse? set pieces and
I think
assists. He's up there.
I do feel Ward-Prowse is a very good player and he might make the squad. We don't know, but if we're looking to win it and we're looking at the players that I think he's got that security from Rice and from Phillips that he'll get from Ward-Prowse. And I think Bellingham, the way that he played in that semi-final or the quarter-final against Man City was so assured, played so well. I think, although he's only 17, for goodness sake, I think it's time now to put him in the squad.
Mm-hmm. And Jesse Lingard, what do you think about him getting in the squad?
Yeah, I think Jesse. I think Gareth really likes him. I think he's got a bit of everything. He's so athletic. I saw him close up at Brighton, and when you see him live, he's very graceful, so quick. He's got obvious, huge ability on the ball. He's had a little bit of a dip in form, hasn't he? I'm sure he'll want to end strongly at the weekend against Southampton. But I think Gareth likes him, and I think he'll go.
You do feel that he's gone out on loan, perhaps with the thought of the Euros.
Absolutely,
with Gareth, maybe even
he's
having a conversation with Gareth Southgate.
I was never a believer in him, actually, to be honest. And I'm looking. I've named 9 players here, by the way, that took part in that semi-final in 2018 against Croatia. And Lingard, I wasn't really convinced then, but I am now that he can come in and do a job. But whether he gets to play in the 11 is another matter, and that's the sort of competition we now have for places. If they're together in the camp and they're working together, it'd be interesting to see if Grealish can close that gap in terms of fitness to get into this 11.
Mason Greenwood, though, is another player. I know you suggested him as well, who's coming into a bit of late form. Is it too soon for him to be thought of in this Euro squad for you, David?
No, I love him. I think I think Ollie's spoken about him for a long time, being the best finisher at the club. Well, if he's the best finisher at Man United, he'll be one of the best finishers for England, in the whole country. And he is left, right. But does he usurp?
I don't think Southgate will pick him. So
I don't think he'll pick him either, because I don't think he'll get in ahead of a Rashford or someone else who might be fulfilling that role.
It's a difficult one. We've tried to talk about it in the last 10 minutes, and you do sort of to and fro with the decisions. Bob, I'm surprised you haven't piped up with some experience that we're lacking.
No, I don't. I'd stick Gareth Barry and I'd do anything. The thought of going to a major international tournament with the midfielders who are 20, 22, 25 is terrifying. Jordan Henderson, and then they're all popping up. Let's not leave them out. Jonesy's basically had all the same names that Martin got. He's got Danny Ings in.
Who's this? Sorry,
Jonesy.
Yeah.
So you're forgetting, if you're talking about
Jonesy?
form. Who's Jonesy? How dare you?
Who's Jonesy? Should I know who Jonesy is?
He's one of our listeners.
I'm sorry.
The other thing to think
Sorry,
about,
Jonesy,
Bob,
I didn't see that.
we have got 7.
I love it, Jonesy.
We have got 7. We've named 7 players here that will be playing in the Champions League final as well. So you can talk about experiences. They are gathering that experience very fast, aren't they? Foden, Mount, Bellingham, as we have already suggested. So let's see. Maybe it's the time to give the youngsters their head, Bob.
I don't know. Every major tournament I've ever seen, there's always a Modric or someone who bosses it about. And
I agree. I agree. But if we haven't got the experienced players, we've got to go on form. So, but Henderson, we're not hearing anything publicly. He hasn't played since February. So, are we to put him in to the squad with that risk?
It's tough to leave world champion, Premier League Champions League champion, captain. To leave, not to be in the squad would be.
That's all right. We've got Gareth Barry coming in, so
but if you're
fine.
not playing, Dave, if we're not playing, we might as well put.
Yeah, but Jack Grealish hasn't played for 12 games, has he either? So where do you draw the line?
Yeah, but he is playing though. He is playing.
Okay.
But
he's one step ahead.
Look, he doesn't need to suddenly turn up and play in the last game, Jordan, to prove himself. Surely, some players don't need to prove themselves.
Well, they'll be having those conversations behind the scenes, won't they? And they will know, and that'll be announced at some point.
Well, Tuesday is when we will find out.
Not at some point. It's a very specific.
Well, I think the Henderson one will be actually mentioned before that.
Yeah.
Well, maybe so, but as we know, Tuesday is when we will find out who makes that 26-man squad.